Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Technical Tim here, and I want to thank everyone so much who's been liking all my videos and subscribing to the channel, and I'd really appreciate it if you gave this video a thumbs up, or subscribe if you haven't already. And I'm just going to do a quick recap video of the, let me actually pull up the card, of the Overeem card, the DC card. And I didn't have, just before if you guys don't know how I do this, I just talk about each fight and say what I was thinking before and after each fight from just a betting and technical perspective. And I stayed away from this card overall, and I'm glad I did. I just kind of like, some fights went the way I thought, some fights didn't go exactly the way I thought, some fights were close as I expected, and kind of just like that. I just had a couple props and they both hit, but nothing big. But yeah, let's start from the beginning. Makhmud Muradov and Trevor Smith. I think Smith should have probably tried to clinch up and wrestle more, just standing at distance. He was at a speed advantage and he kind of just got lit up. So yeah, like Muradov was gonna win the distance game all day. He's just a little too fast. But I think Smith should have maybe changed up his strategy a little more. Because like the one time he went for a takedown, I think he at least got it for a second. But just because someone gets up on the first one doesn't mean they have the same level of resistance later, especially, like, I mean, if you look at Stamen and Yadong, Stamen kind of melted him later by consistently wrestling. So, I thought Smith didn't have the best game plan in that fight. And because he fought that way, Muradov looked like a monster favorite. Hold on, I'm just pulling up a couple things. But, so yeah, good one for Meredith. Devastating KO. That was brutal. There's a lot of brutal shit that happened tonight. Jandiroba, Mallory Martin. Jandiroba was like the closest I was to really throwing on somebody, throwing on a play, and it was, yeah, like I saw a lot of people, like I saw like Martin as kind of a people thinking maybe she was a good underdog play or value side, but I didn't agree. Like, it's just we hadn't seen her defensive wrestling, and we know, so we don't really know. We don't know. Like, maybe she had awesome defensive wrestling, but we couldn't have known. But we do know Jandiroba has awesome takedowns. I talked about in my video that I love her takedowns, and she always does this double leg or like a single leg and switches to the double. And while she's shooting, she simultaneously uses one of her legs as a trip, like while she's going, and it just kind of consistently makes it a hard takedown to defend, and it works on pretty much everyone she's really fought. Like even Carla Esparza, she was taking her down with that, and Esparza's a good wrestler, and Jandiroba was honestly I think she was on par with Esparza as far as a wrestler goes. I think takedowns were like 5-4 or something in that Esparza Jandiroba fight, but it was really like, when Jandiroba decided to wrestle, she could take down Carla pretty much when she wanted as well. So, I mean, to go close to even on takedowns with Esparza means your wrestling's really good. And I actually like Jandiroba's top game a lot more than Esparza, because Esparza tends to just lay in guard, where Jandiroba can actually pass and really threaten. So I like Jandiroba as a fighter going forward. I played her in a lot of Invicta fights, because I liked her wrestling heavy game. And it's a game that a lot of women just aren't ready to deal with yet, because the sport isn't as evolved yet for women's MMA. So yeah, good win for Jandiroba. And only reason I didn't pull the triggers, I didn't know for sure with Mallory Martin on her wrestling, but I thought it, like, the odds were, I doubt many debutante type of fighters can stop takedowns by Jandiroba. That's what I thought. But we didn't know for sure, so that's why I stayed away. Solecki and Wiman. I didn't think Solecki would sub Wiman, like I talked about that. But so that's why I thought Wiman actually had like a shot here, but obviously got murdered. But I didn't really know if Solecki, I figured he would get dominant positions for sure, but I didn't think he'd sub Wiman. Like, Wiman is a crafty vet. He's seen a lot of these submissions before. And he can retain guard, shrimp back and get guard. But I hadn't seen enough Solecki to know if he would get strikes from the top, because that's what Pena really fucked Wiman up with. And I figured if he landed a lot, like if he was low volume in dominant positions with strikes, I thought that the fight could look somewhat competitive, because I didn't think Solecki would get a sub on Wiman. But because he was using strikes to his advantage, which was really smart, I think he talked about going in that it was going to be really hard to sub Wiman. So he probably figured, I got to make him pay with strikes, which was smart by their team to really kind of beat Wiman up. So good one for Solecki. Wiman should probably retire. Like, don't like making fun of fighters very much, but he's just old. Like, there's no shame in that. Like, he's fighting 20-year-olds, mid-20-year-old guys, so he's going to get fucked up. Mitchell and Sales. Binary fight from the start. I leaned Sales a little bit pre-fight, but I did talk about how I don't like how he gives up hooks so easy when he gives up his back, and Mitchell took advantage of it right away. And Sales would keep giving up his back, and it was just giving Mitchell a lot of dominant positions, and then Mitchell got in that twister. And that twister is actually, it was funny. I was watching it with my girlfriend, that fight, and Cormier screamed guillotine just like right when I did at the same time, because that move, that twister, is actually a high school guillotine for folk style wrestling, where you put the legs in and then you bring the arm over and then you go through, and you'll see a lot of people going for pins in wrestling with that move. It's a very common move. We call putting legs in or riding legs. That's what we call putting hooks in high school folk style wrestling. And a lot of people who are leg riders, I didn't like riding legs much. I could do it, but I was more of I did a lot of breakdowns and things like that, and I would set up arm bars and tilts, which you guys probably don't know what that is, but arm bar is also different for wrestling. But a lot of people who would ride legs, and you guys who wrestled, people who would ride legs, they would hit moves like this, or they would go to a banana split or something as well, but they would hit that high school guillotine. So you'll see that in high school wrestling a lot. So Mitchell, coming from that Arkansas blue collar wrestling background, I'm sure that's a move that he just got good at when he was growing up wrestling, and you can use it as a submission in MMA. And we've only seen 2 of them. He did it, and then Korean Zombie did it to, was it Leonard Garcia? I forget who, but he did it back in the day, I remember. Quarantillo, Kilburn. This was a mauling. I liked a lot of people were playing Fishgold over Quarantillo, and I liked Quarantillo's game because he doesn't look like a guy who will get subbed very easily, and he fucking puts on a pace. Like, I know he's not that great skill for skill, but just offense and tenacity and cardio they go a long way in this game. But yeah, I'm interested to see him going forward. I don't think he's great or anything. I just think he can win against lower level UFC competition at a reliable rate. Means and Alves, I missed the very beginning of this fight, and I heard it was semi-competitive until Means knocked him out and then got the club and sub. That knocked him down, not out. But yeah, I didn't really get to see much. I don't really know. I expected Means to win that fight. Font and Simone, pre-fight I thought it was 50-50. I thought Simone might be the value side, given that he was the underdog, and I thought both guys looked great. I thought both guys looked fantastic. Font, his get-up game and defensive wrestling has improved, although Simone just doesn't have great top control, so a jiu-jitsu positional player who gets Font down like a Sun Sao could still probably hold him down, where Simone just doesn't have that type of riding ability. But Simone's defensive wrestling and scrambling ability and takedowns are quite good. It's just he can't really hold people down well. But I figured he would get takedowns, and he did. I just kind of thought maybe it really just depended on how much he could hold him down. I wasn't really sure. I knew he wouldn't hold him down for an entire round, but I thought this was going to be a close fight. And if Simone had top control, I think he could win this fight. But Font looked, I figured he was the more polished striker, which it kind of showed, but Simone hit him a little bit and stung him to the body. I had a bet on Lineker over Rob Font. in their last fight. And after seeing this fight, I'm really upset that fight got canceled, because Simone was hurting Font to the body and even getting forward pressure, and Lineker's way more dominant than Simone in there. And I don't see how the Font Lineker fight would have gone any different than the first one. I think Lineker, I got it like minus 170 or something at the time. And so just seeing that fight kind of gave me more confidence that Lineker would have probably messed up Font if they rematched. Stamen and Yadong, I talked about how I thought Yadong was going to win, but like I said, with Mallory Martin, we don't know about his defensive wrestling. And like Stamen's going to test it. He shoots like 8 to 10 takedown attempts per fight. So I figured, like, yeah, if Yadong all of a sudden has good wrestling, and just because you train at Team Alpha Male, it doesn't guarantee good wrestling. But if he ended up having good wrestling, he probably would have beat... I thought he was faster than Cody. Although Cody could compete there, I did think he was faster and better on the feet. But we didn't know, and it was going to be tested. And Stamen ended up winning. And Stamen did a good job. Yadong would stop the early takedowns, kind of the first attempt, but then Stamen would then chain over to a single, or he would turn the corner. And it was whenever he was chaining some of his takedown efforts is when Yadong would get taken down. And then he kind of just got melted and fatigued, and that's when Stamen got a lot more top control. I thought Yadong resisted the wrestling well, kind of early in the fight, but later he obviously kind of got exhausted. But as far as the scoring, I feel for Cody, because this is how I thought. Like, at first I thought major robbery on the draw, and then I just kind of thought it was still a bad decision. But, like, I understand Yadong. I thought Cody won round 2, and he got a 10-8 in round 3. So I scored it for him, like, 29-26, because he got the... Yadong got the point taken away as well. That's how I scored it. But I don't think it's impossible for Yadong to get 2 rounds. I just think it's crazy that 2 judges happened to give Yadong round 1 and 2, because I don't even think... I thought the first round was 50-50, and then I thought the Stamen round was like, for round 2, was like 70-30 Stamen. So I'm just surprised Yadong got 2 of those rounds on 2 judges' scorecards. But I could see how a judge could give Yadong the first 2 rounds, even though I don't agree him getting both. But then in round 3, I just don't... This is where I struggle. I don't get how that's not a 10-8. The strike count was 80-7. I just... Or something like that, give or take. Let me look. And he was passing, and he was beating the fuck out of Yadong. How is that not a 10-8? And I know it's the old rules, but I don't care. That is a 10-8 round. That was a fucking murder. I don't like to give hot take arguments, because I understand there's a lot of gray area in anything. But 75-6 in total strikes. Stamen passed 3 times and had like 3.5 to 4 minutes of top control. I just don't understand how that's not a 10-8. And he was pretty close to even getting a finish at times, too. I don't get how that's not a 10-8 round. I just don't get it. And then round 2 was 30-30 in the total strike, so it was a close round 2. But Stamen had 2 takedowns and 2 passes, and Yadong didn't have any. So I thought that was like a 70-30 round for Stamen. But it was competitive. Like, it wasn't a robbery to give Yadong round 2. I just didn't think it was the right call. But it's just every single round went like could have gone differently as far as the scoring. Like those 2 judges that scored it 28-28. But they happened to just like give Stamen the shaft in every round, because round 1 it was like they gave it to Yadong even though Stamen could have gotten that round. They gave round 2 to Yadong even though Stamen probably won that round in the numbers and just watching it. And then in round 3 they give Stamen only a 10-9 round. So it was like each round they gave Stamen the worst outcome. So, yeah, I kind of feel for him. But, yeah, but like, I mean, we found out about Yadong's takedown. Although I don't think his takedown defense looked that bad. going against a wrestler in the future who doesn't attempt a ton of takedowns. I just felt like the volume of attempts is what eventually got him. Like someone who just shoots a few takedown attempts, I think Yadong could probably stop and be okay. It's just the tenacity of Stamen and his attempts is kind of what broke Yadong. Lad and Kunitskaya. The fight, I just saw this fight as like I ended up leaning Lad a little bit, but I wouldn't have played it. But the fight, the scenarios of how I thought it could go is I thought Yana would be a little at an advantage in the clinch, which I think she kind of was, although it wasn't like a beating there. But I thought Lad probably could have the more powerful, accurate punches at distance, and then I thought on the mat, Lad could really fuck her up. And I think all three of those scenarios kind of played out a little bit, but good win for Lad. Rothwell Struve, I'm not going to talk much about this. This was fucking crazy. I thought Struve, honestly, was probably going to be up, and I felt bad for him. Like, he was obviously compromised, and then Rothwell got the KO after the second foul. And as far as, like, whether or not that should have been a DQ in round 2, I'm kind of, like, on the fence. I feel, like, you feel for both guys. Like, you feel for Struve because he was kind of winning that fight up until that first and second foul. But, so you kind of feel bad that he had to go back out there compromised in a heavyweight fight where even if you get points taken away, you can still get knocked out. Then he ended up getting knocked out, so he totally got fucked in many ways. But at the same time, if you would have DQ'd Rothwell, both of them were unintentional. And I think because it hadn't gone 2 rounds yet, it would have been a no contest. But I still feel like just because something's not intentional doesn't mean you can't disqualify someone. Like, a penalty can be a penalty whether or not there's, like, regardless of the classification of culpability, I guess, you know? So, yeah, like, I could see an argument for both, but it's whatever. Weird fight. Marina and Cynthia, this fight, like the Lad and Kunitskaya's, like, I saw advantages, obviously, for both girls, just like I'm sure everyone saw. Marina had the striking advantage, and I talked about how I thought Cynthia would do better there than people thought, and I thought she did do, like, she didn't win any of the striking, obviously, but at distance, she only got outlanded by 6 strikes in the distance strikes, but obviously, like, Marina landed harder, higher quality strikes, but I thought she'd be kind of okay there. And not completely defenseless, but in the clinch is where I was kind of worried. And I did a write-up on this fight, so for people who bought my picks. And I talked about how Marina's probably where Marina could probably damage Cynthia a little bit in the clinch. And it's just Cynthia pushes off well. And you saw in this fight, they only were in the clinch a couple times, and Cynthia would get away. But those couple times, Marina kind of battered her. And that's where that's where I thought Marina had the huge advantage in the clinch, where at distance, she definitely had an advantage. I just don't think it wasn't like a complete mauling, because Cynthia had her moments, and Cynthia actually landed the same amount of strikes in round 1, but Marina obviously hit a lot harder, it was more precise, so Marina definitely had the striking edge. But on the mat, I thought Cynthia had a bigger advantage than Marina had on the feet. Like, Cynthia was fucking her up. And I'm surprised she didn't get that finish, but I'm fine with the decision. I thought Cynthia, round 3 was a 10-8 round. Like, it just was. But Marina also had a pretty big round in round 2, but I'm fine with the draw. The round 3 was the biggest round in the fight, and then Marina definitely took round 1 and 2, so it was cool. And then Rozenstruik Overeem, also kind of just like a weird fight. They kind of just had like a low-volume kickboxing fight for a while. And as far as stoppage, I'm, like, obviously, if I had money on Overeem, and I feel for Overeem bettors, because Overeem was probably going to get the nod if they would have let that ride out. So I feel for them as far as, like, unluckiness, but as far as a stoppage itself, I would have been fine with them letting it go, and I'm fine with them stopping it too. Like, I don't think either one is, like, a terrible decision, because I get the argument for there just being a few seconds left, so let it ride out. and Rozenstruik backed off and Overeem at least popped up. But at the same time, like, Overeem took a massive shot and his lip was fucking destroyed. So, like, I don't think the ref is always... Like, the ref isn't thinking about... I feel like the ref, whenever they're stopping a fight, they're, like, more worried about the fighter, the damage they took. And I think, you know, if you're Big Dan and you're reffing a fight and you see a lip go like that from a guy who just got massively dropped, that you're just, you kind of just impulsively stop the fight. So I don't know, like, but I guess he didn't jump in right away. So I see arguments for both sides, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But overall, like, kind of a wacky card, but some entertaining moments at times. But yeah, we got Usman and Covington next week, and I'll be dropping videos throughout the week. Thank you guys. Bye.